We're talking here today with a couple of great local photographers here in the Twin Cities area, Mark Fierst and Angela Devine. So I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Mark?
Hi, Dana. Thanks for having me and thanks for putting this all together. I own Mark Fierst Photography. I've been doing photography for about 9 years, been doing it full time for going into my fourth year. And so, yeah, just really enjoy being a wedding photographer. And I just love what you're doing here, trying to help brides kind of with planning and get to know just kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on with photography and kind of the decisions that we have and how the day goes. So excited to be a part of it.
Great. And Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela Devine. I own Angela Devine Photography. I've been doing weddings full time this is year 6 for me. And then I also do brand photography. So I help business owners stand out, grow their online presence by also shooting photos for their business. So I'm excited to be here on all ends of the spectrum. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. I really appreciate your time today. What I want to do is just go over some of the maybe common questions that couples have and will typically ask me when looking at photography and kind of planning out their day and their budgets and where to put their dollars towards. So just a few questions that I commonly get, and I think that most couples have themselves, and we'll let you guys answer that and then see what else comes up. So the first one is going to be, when is it important to have a second shooter? I know you both typically work with second shooters, and I've certainly worked with photographers who don't. But in your opinion, when is it important to have one, or why is it good to have one? And Mark, I'll let you go first.
Well, I think, I guess well, for second photographers, I usually have a second photographer with me for about 75% of the weddings that I do shoot. I think they're great and very, very almost necessary to have for like when the bride and groom are getting ready in different locations. And so you can have two people, people in two different places at the same time. Outdoor weddings, I think it also has a lot of value to it, especially barn weddings, because everything is so spread out. There's a lot of running around, typically like in a mansion, like everything's all enclosed in one little spot. So I think those outdoor weddings, venues that have a lot of space where you're moving around a lot, it really does help. Also, having a second photographer definitely does also give you some flexibility with like a large family that you're having to shuffle around for pictures, or if you have a large wedding party and you are really kind of sometimes cramped for time, that you can kind of break apart some of those wedding party photos. So those would be some of the times that having a second photographer would be good. So
great. And Angela, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what Mark said, especially church weddings. There's some churches that have some really strict rules about like, where can the photographer be? And you can't like necessarily run from one side to the other to get like the vows and whatnot. So I feel like that's a really good time to have a second shooter. Also, if you're not seeing each other before the ceremony and you want to capture like whoever's standing down the aisle's face, but also who's coming down the aisle, that can be a great reason to have a second shooter. Yeah. And I typically, like think about size of the wedding too. Like if it's a really large wedding, second shooter can be so helpful because they can get all the moments that sometimes one person can't. So I definitely always sit down with my clients and talk to them and like tell them my honest opinion. But I'm kind of always like, why not add on a second shooter and get two perspectives of your day if you can?
Right, it's an entirely second camera taking a whole other set of photos. So that's kind of always been my thought process. Is there like, in your minds, is there any sort of like cutoff? Like if you have a wedding party that has, more than 6 people on each side or more than 4 people, or, a certain number of family or a certain guest count, is there like, it is a no-brainer to have a second shooter? Either one of you?
Over 250. That's usually a good number of people, especially if there's like a ceremony somewhere else than a reception. That's when I'm like, yes.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. If you're moving around to 2 different spots for ceremony and reception, that definitely helps. I don't know if there's necessarily a magic cutoff as far as a family or wedding party size. Definitely once you get to over like 16 on a wedding party, it definitely does help. But I've had a second shooter for weddings where, you know, the wedding party is just like best man, maid of honor. And so it really depends on what the couple, you know, what they're valuing in their photos and what kind of photos they want. If they want more candid photos of things going on, definitely having a second photographer is going to add to that and give them more of those candid moments.
For sure. And I suppose like another good reason too is if the wedding party is, say, like going somewhere during social hour after the ceremony, but and you want photos of that, but then you still want photos of happening during the social hour at the venue, or if you want a room shot of the venue before all the guests start coming in. Somebody, like, you can't have both if you only have one shooter.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So my next question is always a controversial one, is the pros and cons of having pros and cons of first look and having a first look versus, seeing each other for the first time before the ceremony. And I'll let you start this one first.
Yeah, I think it completely depends on the flow of your day. The biggest problem is if you don't see each other before, we only have the time after to do like all of the photos of the couple, as well as like the family all together, as well as the wedding party all together. So it makes it one of those where it's like, we gotta hurry and we gotta go, and it's gotta be really efficient. If you are a person that doesn't have a lot of time between your ceremony and your reception, or if you don't want your guests to wait, definitely a first look will alleviate all that, so you can enjoy that second piece of your wedding more. But then again, there is also like people who really value that tradition. So I think it kind of depends on the flow of your day and how you want it to be. And if you are willing to spend like an hour and a half after your ceremony getting pictures done.
Sure. Yeah. And Mark, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, that definitely is a big piece of it. From a flexibility standpoint, it does allow more room. I think that, one of the other things that couples don't realize on their wedding day is that you rarely have time alone. And often your only time alone is at midnight. And so having that first look gives you those minutes, those moments alone by yourself just to connect. And it's a great time, especially if the bride or the groom is going to have a lot of stress or anxiety on the day. It kind of relieves some of that stress. I think one of the things, like my wife and I, we did not see each other. So the first time I saw her was when the doors opened. She came down the aisle. So I totally get it. One thing that I do know have on this side of it now is I definitely sense and get the feeling, a lot of brides are like, oh, I want him to have all those emotions, when he sees me for the first time. And, there's this buildup of things. And having done this, so when I first started, the thing that it really shocked me was the range of emotions happens no matter what you do. And so I've had first looks where the groom's like, oh, hi, hey, oh, you look really nice. And then they see each other, he sees her on the aisle and he's just bawling. Okay. So he holds it together and you still get the same emotions during the ceremony. And I've seen every combination of that, whether they cry and then they don't. And sometimes, if the guy's not going to cry, he's probably not going to cry. And so, one of the myths I think is that, the first, skipping the first look and doing it traditionally will like bottle up all of this magic on your wedding day. And it happens. It happens no matter what you choose. So I think that's one of the real cool things, that I've seen, shooting weddings and working with all the different couples.
Yeah, no, and obviously as a planner, I'm all about the timeline and being efficient. And so, more than likely, like I'm probably going to advocate for a first look. And not only will I advocate for a first look, as you kind of pointed out, Mark, that, it's the only time that they sometimes get together during the day. I'm also very like, your first look is with you two and your photographer and your videographer, if you have one, and that is it. There's nobody peering around the corner. There's nobody peeking out the window. There's nobody taking pictures from afar. Like, your first look is for you two. And so I will cut people off if they try to sneak out and watch it. But that does make sense. And I feel like I think I agree that even if even if somebody has done a first look, still the emotion of seeing somebody, like during the ceremony coming down the aisle, and you're surrounded by all your family and friends, like that whole moment, just no matter what, is gonna bubble up inside of you. And so yeah, definitely having the first look, I don't think takes away from that, but I definitely understand if people want to be traditional and do that. And I think as long as they're willing to understand that if you're going to do that, then we're going to just have to take more time after the ceremony to get those family photos in and full wedding party photos if you want those. And that's, as long as you're willing to understand that, then we're good to go. Well, great. Next question, speaking of those family photos, is how can you as a photographer and the couple as themselves and I as a planner, how can we best keep those family photos from getting out of control and stressful, especially for the couple? And Mark, why don't you take that first?
I bring whiskey with it. No, I'm just kidding. It's all about preparation. Well, it's not all. A lot of it is about preparation. And so when I'm going through a timeline, if that hasn't been established already with a day of coordinator or a planner like yourself, I'm allowing I'm allowing 10 to 15 extra minutes no matter what. So I never have to feel the stress, or that if bridal wedding party photos took a little bit too long, that I'm not trying to rush to try and get family photos done. So having extra time is good. Uncle George, we always have to find Uncle George. Getting grandma up there, might take longer. So just having the extra time, being prepared, being able to take charge, but being prepared. I go through with a couple beforehand a list of every single family photo that they want to take. And then, so it's just check. So if I have a second photographer, or if the wedding planner is there, do you have coordinators there? It's like, okay, mom and dad, check. Mom and bride and dad, check. Bride and mom, check. And you just go down the list. So being prepared definitely helps. And then just, like anything on your wedding day, just having fun, staying relaxed, telling jokes, is always
whiskey.
a good default. And yes.
Angela, what about you?
I do the same thing as Mark. I make a list and I get people's names. So day of, I can call them and be like, Joe, John, and Mary, stand here. Let's get this picture. There usually tends to be one or two problem people, and it's usually not immediate family. It's usually like extended. Yeah. And they're like, well, what about me? What about my photo? So something that I've been doing is definitely because if you say we're going to do family photos, those people start to come up to you and usually get like a little like, well, what about me? So what I'll tend to do is ask my couples, do you want to do any extended? If so, when do you want to do them? If we don't have time before the ceremony, we can do them at the reception. So that way, when those people do approach, you can be like, hey, we're going to do that at the reception. I will for sure let you know when, et cetera, et cetera. So that way that everyone's on the same page and there isn't a lot of confusion. So yeah, just making it all about planning. If people want to add stuff in day of, you have a list that at least you'll get through. And that way there's not a lot of confusion.
Awesome. Yeah. One thing that we'll usually tell our couples too is kind of during our final planning meeting is make sure you have those shot lists of the people that you definitely want to have. Oh, the cousins are all going to be together at once. You want to get that. Check with both families, because what you don't want after the wedding is mom or dad coming up to you. Oh, I wish I would have gotten a picture with all of my siblings. So before the wedding, tell your family, ask them if you want any group photos, now is the time for you to tell me those so we can put them on the list. And I don't want to hear about it afterwards if we didn't get that. And then along with that is, because we can definitely help, gather people and keep things rolling for the family photos. But even, I don't know who Uncle George is necessarily. So to kind of have a photo wrangler from each side of the family who knows who everybody is and can be armed with that list and be like, all right, Johnson family, you're in. And tell me if correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like most of the time when you're doing those extended family photos, you're going to start with kind of the largest group of people and get everybody in, and then whittle it down to there until like immediate family or so. Is that correct, would you say?
I will do that if there are small kids, like little kids or grandparents that I know I need to get in and out. So then I'll start big and work small. Otherwise, I'll usually start small and work up. It all depends on the size of the family and the mobility of people and nap schedules and all of that. So
yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. So my final question for you guys is, obviously you've both been in the business for a while, and you've had weddings where you haven't had a planner or a coordinator, and weddings where you have. And so can you kind of give me an idea of when you do have a planner or coordinator there, how does your day differ, or how does it, how do you work better when one's there? Do we just get in the way? What does it look like for you guys of having a planner coordinator there versus not? Angela, I'll let you start that one first.
Yeah, I mean, there's all different styles of planners out there. I feel like that's something I've learned working with planners. There's some who are very like by the book, like at 8:04 we need to have this done and stuff like that. But no matter how their style is, when they're not there, I have to be the coordinator. And I'll literally be the one like staring at my watch like, hey, we were supposed to be out the door and going to the reception 15 minutes ago. Let's hurry up. So it becomes a lot easier to have a second person advocating for the schedule of the day. And it's just nice it's kind of like having at least Dana, when we're working with you, it's like having a friend there to help make sure the day goes even smoother. And it's really nice, especially during the reception too, because the reception, things can kind of trail off and things might get pushed back a lot just because no one's really motivated to get things going. Mm-hmm. So it's really nice, in my opinion, to have somebody else like just helping you out with the schedule of the day and an extra set of hands and eyes to help with anything you need.
Oh, for sure. Oh, and if you're looking at your watch to see like, okay, what do we got to do next? Then you're not looking through your camera to see what photos there are.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Sometimes I'm like, and I think like too, like the biggest thing I always try and tell people now, if they don't have a coordinator, I'm like, you need to pick somebody to pin on the boutonnieres. I can't tell you how many times I get stuck doing that. And I'm like, I should be working, taking photos and getting these images, but since you didn't put anyone in charge, I'm stuck like pinning on the flowers and holding all the things and tying people's shoes. So I just think it's a great way to make sure your photographer can be the photographer.
Awesome. Mark, what about you?
Exactly. I mean, I just agree with all that. I think one of the last things you said, Angela, was just having an extra set of hands and eyes. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, is the advantage of having a day of coordinator or a planner. But the other thing is like, that's your job, you have experience, with hundreds of weddings of this is what I do. I've seen and done everything. So just that level of comfort and insurance is just a great thing. And sometimes it is when you have a planner and something isn't going, the timeline isn't going, like, well, what do you suggest? Or what has worked well in the past for this? I think that, definitely can help relieve some of that stress and anxiety on the wedding day. And I mean, I think of it like, in school, when you worked in groups of 4 and you all had different roles, and one of the person in the group was always the manager or the leader or the coordinator or whatever. And that's what your wedding planner is. And so every group needs that. Every group needs that person that they know is in charge and has a handle of things and can move things smoothly. And then that's what your role is. So, Dana.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate you putting it that way, and that makes total sense. And that even, that kind of leads it into how we, when I'm talking to people and saying, here's the value of having a planner or coordinator, is that kind of without one, it's basically up to your photographer and your DJ and your catering captain to kind of keep your day moving. But that's not their job. That's not why you hired them. You hired them to take amazing photos and to play great music and keep your guests on the dance floor and to serve your food hot and on time. And so by having a planner or coordinator there to run the timeline, manage the group, kind of say, here's what's next, it's time to start doing this, it's time to stop doing this. That allows all of you and the other vendors that couples have hired to do the jobs that they have hired them for and to focus on those jobs, thereby, allowing the couple to get their most value out of you. Would you say that?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. I think that a lot of times people mistake the venue coordinator for the planner.
So
And it
true.
depends on the venue, right? It's like sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're there for a portion of the day. So I always just think like, why not? Like, if you want this to truly be the best day ever, it's worth it to invest in the people that can do that and make it happen, right?
Exactly. 90% of the couples that I, work with, I hear at some point, we've never done this before,
Yeah,
and
right?
so like you haven't. And so why not, why not invest that time to make sure that everything, else goes well, and everything else goes smoothly, and you can enjoy, things. So
Right,
yeah.
right. It kind of goes back to that old adage of you don't know what you don't know. Well, guess what? I know what you don't know.
Yeah,
You guys
right.
know what they don't know. So trust us, listen to us when we tell you these things.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to throw out a bonus question here real quick for you guys, just because I actually have gotten this question a lot lately. Why do, what is the point? Why do you, spend the time? Why do people want pictures of their shoes or, their rings or their invitations, or what's the point of detail shots? Like, why do you like taking them? Why do you think that they tend to be a part of people's photography shots? And Mark, you can take that one first.
um I'm going to take pictures of everything that you spent money on. And I think that's kind of the simple answer. Like, you spent money on your shoes that you're going to wear for one day. We're going to document that. We're going to document the invitations that you either spent a lot of money on or you spent a lot of time designing by hand. The centerpieces, that you sat down and you chose, that you made, that your mom made, that your mother-in-law made. They're all parts to the day. They're all parts to the entire story of the day. And so I think that, Angela would echo that. I mean, it's about telling the story and all the little details, and it's not just main ideas and main points and kisses and stuff like that. But your wedding day is special and unique because there's all these other different parts to it. So we want to capture that. We want to tell the story of everything there. So
Yeah. Angela, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, so my couples, I work with kind of more of a niche group that tends to not care so much about that stuff. And they'll tell me that right off the bat. And I don't have a lot of detail shots in my portfolio either. And they'll like say to me, like, I don't really want this, this, or this, or this. And I'll be like, okay, but like, even if you don't, I still will always be like, let's get a photo of your dress, your flowers. A lot of couples say, I don't want my rings. I'm like, well, let's get them on your fingers at least. I do agree with Mark. I think that, your story isn't just about the people. It is about some of the details. So I truly believe, like, if you really don't want them, I'll still like be like, give me like 5 minutes to like take a few, right? Your whole wedding day doesn't have to just be the details, but why not get like at least one photo of everything together that you did spend money on? So at least when you look back on your day and say like the invitation got lost in that box that you had in your closet, whatever, you still have a copy of that kind of stuff, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, especially if saying like, yeah, like you've spent money on it, and why not take a photo of it? You don't ever have to look at it again. You don't have to put it in your wedding album. You can delete it if you want, but isn't it better to like take a few minutes and just document all of those things? So
even a few minutes, right? Like, we don't need that much time. If you want a lot of intricate stuff, yeah, maybe we need like 15, 20 minutes if you have like a list of details. But if you don't, give us like 5 minutes. We'll get a couple things done right away in the beginning. And then obviously at your reception, we'll get some of the centerpieces and stuff like that too. It doesn't have to take too long. So why not, right?
And Angela brings up a good point. As a photographer or as a planner or really any vendor, like, you have to know your couple. You have to know your couple. You have to know what's important to them, what they want. And that's the big communication piece. The big communication piece. And, I was like, the centerpieces, one wedding night, we're taking centerpiece photos, and then You know, afterwards, you know, the bride was like, oh, did you take pictures of every single place at the head table? I said, no, we didn't. She's like, oh, well, they were all different, you know, and we didn't have that conversation beforehand. So I think the knowing your couple, knowing what they want, being able to communicate with that before the wedding day on your final consult, you can, you know what's important to them, you know what you have to get, and then you know what would be nice to get.
Yeah, I usually have them gather everything that they want photographed like right away when I get there into one spot, so I can like grab it, go, and then like I always ask the question, like, if there's any other important details that you put a lot of time and energy into that you want photographed, please let me know now so that I can get it during your day.
Right. Maybe you're wearing grandma's necklace, or you have, you know, a special handkerchief from somebody, or whatever the case may be. Like, yeah, why not? All right, I'm going to go rogue and ask one more question that we did not plan on. So, because it is definitely one that we get asked a lot from couples, and candid photos versus posed shots or formal shots, you know, because when we're talking with clients who are starting to look for their photographers, they're like, I don't want, you know, a lot of posed photos. I want a lot of candid photos. What does that mean? You know, as a photographer, what does that mean to you? Like when you hear that from a couple that you're talking with, which I'm sure you both have, what does that mean to you? And either one of you can.
I think that people mix this up a lot, because I'll talk to couples who are like, I want everything to be candid. And I'll be like, okay, so for you, what that means is you don't want photos of you just looking at the camera the whole time. When we are talking pure candid, that means that we're not stopping, we're not doing anything, right? Like when somebody says to me, like, what does a candid photo mean? To me, that means like completely photojournalistic. So when wedding couples say to me, like, I want candid photos, I'm like, that still means that there's going to be a tiny bit of posing, right? Like, I'm going to put you in the right place, get you in the right light. I'm going to ask you to interact with each other, because you're not just going to stand there and do candid things, right? So I do think that posed photos, to me, when someone says I want less posed photos, like, I think no matter what kind of wedding day, you have to consider too, like, this is a family heirloom, right? So we still need to get a posed photo of your family. We can get some candid ones too, like, you know, that's fine. But like, we need a posed photo of your family so that mom and grandma are happy, right? We need a posed photo of your wedding party. So again, mom and grandma are happy. But I think that it's great to have a balance, give them some of those posed photos, but also like candid can simply mean like, let's just like interact with each other and walk around and have fun. So it's almost like you forget a photo's being taken.
Mark,
I don't know if that answers that 100%. Sorry.
No, it sounds good. I'm sure Mark has a follow-up.
Of course. No, I mean, Angela, you're exactly right. There's a lot of misconception about, you know, what that, you know, candid photo is. And, you know, when people say, oh, I love the candid photos, when I say, oh, what do you like about my, you know, portfolio or my Instagram feed or whatever? Oh, we love the candid photos. And I mean, I tell them that like 90% of those candid photos are all posed. So I will pose them, and then I will say, tell a joke, you know, list off desserts in a sexy voice. And then it becomes funny, and then they laugh and it's natural. Or if the couple's together and they have this, you know, they start to tear up or whatever, it's a posed photo, because I put them together and say, okay, I want you to tell your bride what you envision life being like in 20 years, you know, or say a prayer together. And then that's what becomes natural and organic, and candid. But it's all based on a scenario that I put them in. And that's the candidness that people love seeing. But just the candidness of just people walking around and taking pictures, that's a waste. Quite honestly, you know, you want the pose, you want a photographer that can create candid moments out of posing. So
yeah, I mean, because I think in people's minds, that's what they're thinking. Oh, the candid, like there's literally somebody just walking around and just happens to get this perfect shot of the kid, you know, doing a twirl or whatever. And those things do happen, and that's definitely where a second shooter comes in handy, is to kind of help capture some of those really random moments while you're kind of off taking some of the some of the more formal ones, but I do feel like in people's mind, like that's what Candid is, but Candid, it really sounds like a larger definition of just like happen to catch the great shot of somebody making a funny face.
And I think that a lot of people too, like the biggest thing to know is like most of us photographers, and I mean, me and Mark have worked together. So Mark, feel free to interject with how you do this too. The most posed we will get with you during the day is when we do the photos of you two, the bride and groom, or the bride and bride, the couple, whatever, the family and the wedding party. Like ceremony, we're not gonna be like, hey, can you scoot over to the left a little bit? That's completely candid. Same with like the reception. But like there is a point where you are gonna want some direction.
Yeah, exactly. You might move people around for lighting, but yeah, I mean, the family photos are all posed. Those traditional heirloom photos that Angela was talking about, usually if a couple does a first look, or right after the ceremony, that's when I will do, okay, we're going to get these out of the way.
Yeah, I'm done.
If you do the posing, where he puts the arm around, hand on the forearm, she's holding the flowers up, you're both looking at the camera, and you get those out of the way. And because not everyone wants those, but you definitely still need them. And you want those photos to look back on. So you do those, and then you start to do more of the candid and fun. And
you're going to want that for your mantle. And I can attest, I had one couple one year that was like, we do not want to smile at the camera at all. We don't want to do that. And I was like, okay. And they were like, no, 100%. Guess whose dad called me asking why there's not a picture of them smiling at the camera? I was like,
Yep.
It's worth it. Just do 5 minutes of posed looking, right? That's all you need.
Yeah, because why not? Exactly. Well, I appreciate your guys' time today and me throwing some curveball questions at you and getting some really good, honest answers and feedback for couples who are trying to figure out, their photography. Because as we've said, this is something that most people have not done before, and most people aren't photographers and don't know what it takes to make a successful wedding photography happen. So I really appreciate your guys' time and expertise today, and look forward to working with you both again soon.
Hey, thank you, Dana. This was fun.
All right, thank you.
Yep.